who do you see as the most likely player to dominate this next decade of basketball?
Ooh. I'm going to take this one first.
That's a good question. That's a really, really good question. I'll let you go first.
All right. We'll argue for Luka Doncic. I think Luka Doncic, when you look at what he's done already in the league for the Dallas Mavericks, I think he really has been fantastic. When you look at the way the game is evolving in terms of modern day concepts, you look at big guys are shooting threes now. And Luka Doncic, again, he's not in that small guard mold. He's not in that fast. He is fast for his size, but he's not in that like fast. You have to ball handle all the time and do it. It's big guys shooting threes and big guys that can pass, and that's really the mold of the game now when you look at Luka Doncic. And also, again, international talent is becoming a big thing now in today's game. When you look at his numbers this year, he was an MVP candidate much of the year on a team that's not overly deep. Yeah, you have Kristaps Porzingis. Tim Hardaway Jr. is a decent shooter, but again, that's really it. The team is not very deep. A lot of bad contracts, and he has 28.7 points a game, 8.7 assists, and 9.3 rebounds for the whole season. That's insane numbers when you consider the circumstances. And again, when you look at his growth, his upside, he's 21 years old, 6'7", and again, he is the perfect mold of what this game is going to. Big guys that can pass, big guys that can ball handle, and big guys that can shoot. And Luka Doncic can do all of that and then some, and he's just 21 years old.
I like Luka, but I'm going to go with the Greek Freak. The Greek Freak has been a dominant player, dominant force, really the last 3 years. And if you look at his numbers, how many people could you compare to his numbers from rebounds to points, even to, for a big man, averaging about 5.8 assists last year? I mean, this is the guy, this is the prototypical big man that you want on your team. He can play defense, he can play offense, he can dominate the game in the paint. He can also shoot 17, 18-foot jumpers. Now, the league has changed and transitioned to a three-point league. No question that it has. But what Giannis and how do you pronounce it? Antetokoumpo. I can't pronounce his name.
You'll get it one of these days.
I am very bad with this guy's name, but the Greek Freak, this guy has transitioned the game. He's 24, 25 years old. He still has a good 7, 8 years. You were saying 10 years, but this kid could do everything. And he's going to lead this team to 1 or 2 championships, especially in the Eastern Conference. Luka Doncic plays in the Western Conference, which is completely different. Giannis is going to have the opportunity to win consistently every single year because of how weak the Eastern Conference is. And it takes a while for the Eastern Conference to grow like it has over the last couple of years, the West. In the 90s, it was the Eastern Conference. Now in the new era, for the last 20 years, it's been the Western Conference. Giannis has been the best player in my eyes in the last 3 years. And when you compare LeBron James and all those guys like Anthony Davis and even Luka Doncic and all the players, the young players that we see come in the league, everybody is prototypically trying to be this guy. It's Giannis Antentokoumpo. So,
yeah, I mean, this is a pretty crazy debate, actually. This is the NBA. It's just American, usually generalized as an American sport, but there's a lot of international players that we're discussing. Like Giannis is an international player, and Luka Doncic as well. But I'm actually going to agree with Speedy, and I'm going to say Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic has been a pro for about 6 or 7 years now, and he's only 21 years old. And he's came onto the NBA scene with a boom, averaging 29 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists. I mean, he's barely a walking triple-double at the age of 21 years old. So when we think about 10 years down the line, he'll only be 31 years old. He does everything that you need. He can pass, he can rebound, he can dribble, he can shoot. He creates plenty of separations on step backs and a variety of ways. You can tell this guy's been a pro for a long time. So I think his ability to sustain the level that he's playing at now will be relatively easy for him. And he's in a great situation in Dallas with Mark Cuban. He has Dirk Nowitzki on the bench as a coach now, and he also has Kristaps Porzingis. So he's around a lot of these foreign players, and he's very comfortable where he is. So I think he'll be able to sustain for a long time.
And interestingly, I'm actually going to agree with Errol. So we have some debate wars going on within the debate wars. And I'm going to take the Greek Freak. I think the argument for Luka has 2 really pillars. Brandon mentioned some other ones that were good points, like the fact that he's been a pro for 5 years. But the fact that Luka's younger and the fact that Luka can shoot is really the 2 things. But Luka's only 4 years younger, so Giannis is still going to be in his early 30s during the later part of this decade and still has 5 more years of being in his 20s. And when it comes to shooting, Luka Doncic is shooting 32% from 3 this year. Giannis is shooting 31% from 3 this year. So the difference really isn't much. And Giannis is someone who's shown vast improvement over his past 3-4 years. So I expect that to continue to improve. And when you look at Michael Jordan, who's known as one of the greatest shooters ever, he shot 0 3-pointers when he first started in his career. So he developed that shot. It's something that Giannis can definitely develop as he continues on his career. And it's the only flaw in his game. He has everything else. He can dominate his way into the paint. He can rebound with the best of them. He can defend. Probably should earn Defensive Player of the Year on an annual basis. And he's a lights out player on both ends of the floor. And when you're projecting someone to be something over 10 years, it's hard to argue for someone who doesn't have elite athleticism, because it's something that you're going to need to have to continue to be durable, to continue to have sustained success. And that's something I have no concerns with when it comes to Giannis. So I think Giannis has that ceiling of being one of, if not the greatest players of all time, because of the all-around capabilities he could have if he develops that jump shot. And if he does, he's going to be unstoppable, and then also defend your best player and limit him as much as anyone can do. So I also agree with Errol. I'm taking Giannis in that argument.
And I just want to give a shout out to you guys. They said he's been a professional for 6 years. He was a professional overseas, not in the NBA. So if you guys misunderstand, they said he's been a professional for 6 years, but he was a professional all the way till he was like 15 or 14 years old. So that's what they meant. That's what they meant. But yes, I think Giannis, and remember, Giannis is a 2-time all-defensive player. To Luka Doncic, who's a good defensive player, he's not an all-defensive player. And that's the difference. I think both players are great players. They're foreign players, and you could see the league transitioning into that European style of game, and you can see it right now with Giannis and Luka Doncic, 2 European players, great players.
Yeah, it's really interesting, just real quick, what Brandon brought up, how like the two players we're talking about are foreign players in what was an American game. It's really cool to see the
Michael Jordan.
NBA becoming a global game.
Michael Jordan, that's who has transitioned the game and what it is today, and nobody can argue that point. Michael Jordan is the reason.
Magic and Larry started, and Jordan evolved.
All right, our next question for you guys will shift to baseball now. Who had the more dominant Cy Young season? Clayton Kershaw in 2013 or Jacob deGrom 2 years ago in 2018?
Give me 1 second. I'm going to see if Clayton Kershaw also got blown up in the playoffs that year. Or
go ahead. We'll give you We'll give you a second.
If it was just every other year. So 2013, you said. All right. So I'm going to go Jacob deGrom, simply for the fact that they were both all-time seasons. I mean, right off the top of your head, you think of players who dominated the game. Clayton Kershaw was the best player over a decade, and 2013 was probably his most dominant season. And Jacob deGrom, while he doesn't have the longevity, the question you just asked was who had the best single season. His single season last year was one of the most impressive ones that we've seen, and it didn't end with him getting blown up in the National League Championship Series to the Cardinals, who would go on to win the World Series, like Clayton Kershaw. So both of these guys dominated. It's hard to say, which one had a better year because they were both dominant. I mean, Kershaw's numbers across the board, you can bring up all the numbers you want. But at the end of the day, what matters is what you do when it matters. And Clayton Kershaw, he'll be the dominant player that he is in the regular season. And then when the pressure's on, when this team needs him to deliver, he consistently does it. And it all started in that 2013 season when he got blown up. And so Jacob deGrom, while he didn't even have a chance to play in the postseason because his team was the worst supporting cast maybe a Cy Young has ever had, I'm sure he set the record for the most games of not allowing more than 2 runs and still not winning the game, which is why he still won the Cy Young despite the fact that he only had 12 or 13 wins or whatever it was. But when he went on the field, you knew this guy was going to be lights out. You knew the other team wasn't going to score more than 1 or 2 runs, and you knew that your team had a chance to win. And so both of those guys have that, but the fact that Clayton Kershaw has ended in the fashion it did, it's hard to give him, that benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, they both have very elite seasons, obviously. They won the Cy Young. But it really goes back to the playoffs, like I was saying. You can have an elite season, but it can get derailed in the playoffs. He pitched 10 innings in that playoffs and only gave up 7 earned runs. So Clayton Kershaw, year in and year out, continues to fold in the playoffs. Jacob deGrom obviously is not on as good of a team, so he hasn't got a chance to show what he can do on that high level. But just every time Jacob deGrom steps on the mound, you're going to get dominance. And he continually just dominated in 2018.
Alrighty, so we're gonna have to fight for Clayton Kershaw here, and
No, you don't have to. You could pick Jacob deGrom.
well,
You don't
no,
have to argue.
I'll make it. I'll make it different. I'll fight for Clayton Kershaw. I'll do what you do. Make it tough for myself. I am a Mets fan. So
I do this all the time, guys,
I
against
love the year Jacob deGrom
do this
had,
all
but
the
again,
time.
it's a fair argument for Clayton Kershaw. And here's the thing: I think when you look at it, it's a regular season award. So I don't know if you could take what he did in the postseason
Yep.
into account. It's not a combined award. Same thing with any MVP awards, Gold Gloves, anything like that. It's not a combined award. It's a regular season award. 1.83 ERA. Yeah, deGrom had 1.7, but again, that's not far off. Kershaw pitched more innings, and his whip was a little better, 1.915 to deGrom's 0.921. So when there's definitely some stats there leading. deGrom had more strikeouts, okay, but Kershaw again had more innings pitched. He went longer into games. Was more, I think, more consistent in terms of going longer into games. Not really deGrom's fault, but again, the Mets bullpen kept him from some wins. Okay, that's understandable. But again, I also don't think the team factor really matters either, because when you look at Citi Field, you look at Dodger Stadium, both are relatively pitchers' parks. Dodger Stadium's been more of a hitter's park recently, but I don't really think that factors in. And when you look
That's
at
because of the power of the lineup, too.
and also again, when you look at the National League East at that year and the National League West in 2013, they're similar in terms of divisions. Both were pretty weak. Both were pretty top heavy when you look at it. The Braves were good in 2018, but that was really it. And when you look at the Dodgers competition, you had Arizona, who was a decent team, but it wasn't really great. The Giants had a championship hangover, and the Rockies and Padres were both awful at that time. So the competition level was kind of similar between the two, too. And again, Kershaw's stuff, I think, as a whole, just more dominant when you look at it, just his whole arsenal of pitching, too. So I think it's a fair argument for Kershaw, too.
I'm going to go with Clayton Kershaw, too. And Clayton Kershaw did it in a consistent manner. And Jacob deGrom has dominated the last 3 or 4 years, but Clayton Kershaw has been doing it year in and year out, every single year. Now, ever since his neck injury, his back injury, he hasn't been the same pitcher. But in 2013, go look at his numbers. Now, I know everybody says ERA and whip, and Clayton had better whip than Jacob deGrom did his 2018 season. And the ERAs are almost identical. But look at what Clayton Kershaw did, and look at the division Clayton Kershaw is doing it in. In 2013, that was the best division in basketball. Baseball. Sorry, the best division in baseball. As far as the Mets are concerned, in that division in 2018, besides the not even the Philadelphia, the Braves were the only good team in that division. I'm trying to remember in 2018, but the Braves were the only good team in that division in the year that Jacob deGrom was dominant. So again, you can look at the ERAs and you can compare numbers and statistics all mean everything when it comes to baseball. But look at the division and look at the dominance of what Clayton Kershaw has done year in and year out, and even in 2013, and the way he dominated. And again, if you look at the slugging percentages, even the batting averages against him, to me, it's under 2. It's unbelievable. Both guys have been dominant pitchers in the time of their era. But Clayton Kershaw, because he's done it with the longevity that he has done it in, especially in 2000, and comparing his great seasons all the way to his career, he's had great seasons year in and year out for like 7-8 years.